Board, thank you, Board of Education meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. There was no reportable action taken in closed session this evening. I need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Board.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ruxon. Dr. Ruxon seconded. Any changes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is adopted. We are so excited to see all of you. We're especially excited to welcome the Little League. We are really thrilled. We'll be talking to you in just a couple of minutes. Actually, right now. Dr. DeGrazia?
Right now, indeed. This young group of men from the Glendora American Little League had a special summer. They won multiple tournaments. They reached the San Bernardino Western Regional for Little League. They represented, I think, over 270 teams, 279 teams in Southern California. They are the Southern California State Champions. Let's give them a big round of applause. This really is a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing. Very, very special. They represented, of course, the Little League, and Little Leagues all over Southern California. Goddard Middle School, they're all Titans, and welcome Titans. Glendora Unified School District, the city of Glendora, Southern California. They represented themselves on television. Yeah, they're ESPN stars now. Very nice. So they are state champions again. I love the shirts. 12 wins, three tournaments, wonderful ambassadors for the city of Glendora and for our school district. So we're very honored that you chose to came here. I'd like to introduce the leaders of the team, the coaches first. And let's recognize and have them stand. Randy Timchek. Cameron King. And Chip Norrell. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing what you've done and for leading this great group of young men and outstanding athletes. Again, representing so many little leagues from across Southern California. We'd like to now introduce the players, because they're the ones that went out on the field as moms and dads, you know, got the knuckles white and chewed off all the fingernails, and that's the tough spot to be in. But the students and players did the work on the field. So please join me in welcoming, and Robin Merkley, our board president, is going to present you with some gifts and a certificate. And Tracy Cornelius, our standing executive assistant to the superintendent, is going to help as well. First up, Joseph Apodaca. Joseph.
Dr. DeGrazia?
Yes.
If I might, if it's not too much, when the gentlemen come up, I would love to know what position everybody plays. So when your name is called, if you wouldn't mind letting the group know what your position is, I'm just really interested.
Position? Outfielder. Outstanding.
Stay
Cade
up,
Burbidge.
yeah.
Cade. And you guys could let us know. Right field. Cade. Joshua Kalkanis. Pitcher and first base. Aiden Galindo.
What's your position, Aiden?
Center fielder. Andrew Jacobson.
Andrew, what position?
Pitcher and first base. Colt King. Center field. Very nice, Colt. I'll take half of your hair. I would appreciate just half of your hair. Sebastian Lawrence. Sebastian? Third base, first base, pitcher, outstanding. Jude Munoz. Jude, catcher, strong. Nick Norrell. Second base, thank you, Nick. Tyler Rodriguez. Left field, thank you, Tyler. Quinn Thompson. And Preston Timchek. Two Aidens. And Aiden Garcia. Preston, third base.
Third base.
Shortstop for Aiden. Did I get everybody? Yes. Take a picture. You might see these guys in the future somewhere. Sure.
Coaches, could I ask, do you have some statistics, like how many runs, how many home runs, what kind of big picture? That's an invitation to brag.
So this team had a great summer. I think we hit 21 home runs in district, section, and state, in the Western Regionals, of course. It's been a great 2-year run. They finished third last year as 11-year-olds in state, and so they've won 5 banners between this group in 2 years. And the coaches, I think we would all agree that we'll never forget this group of boys. Very unique, very special, and something that was very challenging, but they worked really hard for 2 years. And my hat's off to them, and they're great young men, and they got a great future. So we appreciate you having us here. It means a lot to all of us, and thanks so much. We appreciate it. Yeah.
If I might real quick, just hats really off to these young men for representing our community and our schools in such an amazing way, and also a real thanks to all of your parents. If I remember correctly, through watching on social media, this went well into July, maybe even into the beginning of August, and that's a lot of dedication for family members, for parents, and for your brothers and sisters who got to go along to all those games. So a big thanks to the whole families for the level of support that they provided for you all. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. So, do you want to stay for the rest of the meeting? If not, you can go now. We'll take a 2-minute recess so you can leave with your families.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for coming. We have two more seats up front, in the very front. Well, she's saving it for someone. Yeah. Okay, we still have one more seat on the very front row.
She thinks it's for Eric.
Oh, is that for, Eric, is this, Mr. Osborne, is this seat for you up front? No, okay. Right up, all the way, right there. Easy. The cafeteria is open, and you will be able to hear and maybe see, is there film? Yeah, you can hear and see in the cafeteria if there are no seats. Yeah, and we need to close the doors because there will be no air. The- Okay, thank you for that fairly quick transition. We are glad to see you here. It's always fun to have a full audience. Let's see, it's time for my statement. The board president shall not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings. Persistent disruption by an individual or group shall be grounds for the president to terminate the privilege of addressing the board. Government Code 54957.9, the board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. In this case, members of the media not participating in the disturbance shall be allowed to remain. And individuals not participating in such disturbances may be allowed to remain at the discretion of the board. When the room is ordered cleared due to a disturbance, further board proceedings shall concern only matters appearing on the agenda. In the event that any meeting is willfully interrupted by a group or groups of persons so as to render the orderly conduct of such meeting unfeasible, an order cannot be restored by the removal of individuals who are willfully interrupting the meeting. The members of the legislative body conducting the meeting may order the meeting room cleared and continue in session. Only matters appearing on the agenda may be considered in such a session. Representatives of the press or other news media, except those participating in the disturbance, shall be allowed to attend any session held pursuant to this section. Nothing in this section shall prohibit the legislative body from establishing a procedure for readmitting an individual or individuals not responsible for willfully disturbing the orderly conduct of the meeting. So that is my saying. Now we are to item 3.9. Legal counsel for the Glendora Unified School District, Mr. Covert, is with us this evening. Mr. Covert, can you present some brief remarks regarding your investigation and item 6.3 on the agenda?
Good evening, and yes, I would be pleased to do so. Dear members of the Board of Education, staff, and community, I was requested by the Board of Education to review matters pertaining to multiple cybersecurity issues. My investigation included a review of related documents and interviews of individuals familiar with the district's handling of these issues, which included an expenditure of $7,500. I determined the vendor who was paid is specially trained, experienced, and competent to perform the special services required by the district. The payment for these services was lawful under the authority provided in the California Government Code. Further, these services were provided to address security issues and not to create a website or web page on behalf of any district employee. The name of the vendor was not released to the public based upon the sensitive nature of the work performed. I also concluded that there was no evidence of any impropriety or unauthorized expenditure by or on behalf of the former superintendent, Dr. De Leon, or by any district employee. Also on tonight's agenda is the negotiated agreement and general release between Dr. De Leon and the district. I negotiated that agreement on behalf of the Glendora Unified School District. The payment that will be made under the agreement is not a result of or related to the payment to the vendor that I've described above, and will be made by the district in accordance with the California Government Code. Thank you very much.
We will continue now with our public comments. May I remind you that you have 3 minutes. We have a clock over here and it counts down. And I would ask that when the timer ends, that you end your remarks. First up is Tasha Drum. And on deck, because it's still baseball season, Mark Luera. Just know that you will be next.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak directly to the board. As a member of this community, a parent, and a family member to an employee, I'm here to tell you today that you have failed us. All of us. Especially the employees. Your time is up. We as a community are done. It's time for every single employee of our district to be able to report to their job without fear of unreasonable stress, fear of a work environment full of hostility, retaliation if they voice a concern, and most importantly, an absurd punishment being handed out, which is starting to become a pattern. Those of us who are lucky enough to call some of these district staff members, our friends and family, and our spouses are sick and tired of watching what they are going through. Your lack of listening, lack of integrity, and lack of leadership skills is absolutely unbelievable to me. We are truly done. If Mr. Lopez was here right now, I would let him know how incredibly grateful I am that he's here. He was a true leader when I was in high school. He was a leader when my oldest was in school, and I have all the faith in the world that he will continue to be a leader to my youngest that is in school right now. I look forward to the day that Gary Clifford and Shauna Elias join him on the board, because then we can be assured that our district will be led with integrity, compassion, and the best interest of our staff members, our children, and our families. I am confident that Mr. Lopez will continue to help take back our district and make it what it once was, and he will continue to help us be the best. Mr. DeGrazia, my family is so grateful that you are here and in this position. I am positive that the last couple years have not been easy, and we are so thankful that you held on and we did not lose you like we lost so many other amazing staff members. Your dedication to our district is unwavering, and your presence is a beacon of light. Thank you for all that you've done and continue to do for our district.
Okay, Mr. Mark Luera, and then Lenore Craig will be next.
Good evening, neighbors. Good evening, friends. My name is Mark Luera. I'm a 17-year resident of the city of Glendora, a proud father of 2 Glendora High School students. My son is Marco, my daughter is Milana. my wife and I have bought here in Glendora due to the well-known school district, and we love it here. We love our friends and we love our neighbors, but I'm concerned. Over the last 2+ years, this board has stood by and put people in place to change not only my opinion, but the opinion of many in our community and surrounding communities. The hiring of Dr. Penelope DeLeon as superintendent was an absolute mistake. The whole process was a mistake from Jumpstart. This board used a consulting firm to locate damaged goods, a woman who was being sued for harassment in her previous district, yet you hired her. Not only does this board hire her, this board extends her contract while she continually harassed my friends and my family and ran off numerous of our excellent administrators, teachers, and staff. Thank God Penelope DeLeon is gone. But you, the board, are still rewarding her. You, the board, are giving her a parting gift. $300,000 in medical and coverage? How does that work? How do you sleep at night giving these people parting gifts? How does an employee resign and get paid for resigning? One more thing I'm curious about in regards to this resignation. How does a certain group find out about their resignation prior to the public finding out about it? Are certain board members aligned with groups hoping to move Glendora forward? Either way, it all stinks. Mrs. Merkley, you are my area representative. In a friendly email I sent to you dated August 1st, I was hoping for a response from you, not only as a board member, but as one of my neighbors. Instead, I received an email from an attorney. To have an attorney answer a board member's email? How is that right? I suggest every single one of you on this board do the right thing. Get out of the way. Move aside and allow those who genuinely care for the well-being of our students and community take your seat. It's about time we set things straight. It's not to save Glendora schools. It's definitely not to move Glendora forward. It's time for this school board to start caring for the students of Glendora again. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to me.
I think there's going to be a common theme tonight. Good evening, and Dominic, it's so great to see you sitting in as superintendent. It looks like we're now entering a season of accountability. Each one of you on the board chose Penelope DeLeon as superintendent for GUSD, even with a pending lawsuit, as previously was said. From the start, she and you tore this district apart for nearly 2 years. From the start, where was I? Okay, for nearly 2 years. 2 years ago, September 20th, 2020, I came and spoke for the first time ever because I had heard so many teachers stating that they are just despondent. It is an awful work environment, being treated horribly. I spoke. I emailed Corey Ellenson about this. All I got in return was a threat upon my daughter. The majority of the teachers from different sites at the same time came forth with a signed petition stating displeasure and mistreatment. You again did not listen to that. You're being held accountable now for spending over $300,000 to buy out DeLeon. You voted for her. Now you're going to vote for that tonight to spend that money. What else here? You now are being accountable for the decisions you made, for mishandling choices, funds, not listening to staff and community. So you decided then to spend near $20,000, I don't know, 15, 20, to hold a listening tour because you didn't know how to listen, and then prove that you wanted to prove problems of inequity and racial issues. They weren't there. All they found, and hopefully Judy White's report tonight will reflect this, that every teacher spoke up and said clearly that they were feeling that there's no trust because of DeLeon, they are mistreated, and there is a fear of retaliation if they spoke up. To she and Dr. Kelson. Virginia Kelson, you are being held accountable for your presentation at conference in Chicago, where you called those at these meetings who speak out noise. You don't want to listen. We're just noise to you. That is so disappointing. So with this coming election for the new school board members, it's clear that we need a new board, total new board. We're going to get 3 seats. And the community and staff, I'm jumping ahead. It's clear we need a new board to hold to hold accountable the staff, community, and handle GUSD funds properly. They need to hire people with integrity. Those board members are Shauna Elias, Gary Clifford, and we already have Paul Lopez.
Sorry, after Jean Lopez, Jonathan Lane will be next.
Good evening. My name is Gene Lopez. I'm the proud father of Catalina Lopez, a senior and varsity cheerleader at Glendora High School, and Carly Lopez, a sophomore, playing field hockey on the JV team, and the proud husband of Kristen Lopez, who is an interventionist at Stanton Elementary School. I'm a member of the Ethnic Studies Community Committee. I look forward to our next committee meeting, and I am hopeful we continue to meet every month as we have a lot of work to do prior to the school year 2025-26, as required by Section G, subsection I of Assembly Bill 101. This committee was organized to review AB 101 and the model curriculum within AB 101. In my opinion, the model curriculum offered by the California State Board of Education does not offer this community's children the proper curriculum for ethnic studies because of Section I, subcategory 2, says not reflect or promote directly or indirectly any bias, bigotry, or discrimination against any person or group of persons on the basis of any category protected by Section 220. The state's model curriculum is riddled with critical race theory and possibly portions of transgender theory, which others and I feel promote bias, bigotry, and discrimination against our students, none of which belong in Glendora Unified School District, again, in my humble opinion. Earlier this year, I gave each of the trustees and Superintendent De Leon a copy of Imprimis on critical race theory, what it is and how to fight it. This adapted lecture from Hillsdale College, written by Christopher Rufo, reveals the importance of fighting CRT and not allowing it to penetrate our schools. Critical race theory is an academic discipline formulated in the 1990s, built on the intellectual framework of identity-based Marxism. According to Rufo, and I quote, there are a series of euphemisms deployed by its supporters to describe critical race theory, including equity, social justice, diversity and inclusion, and culturally responsive teaching. Critical race theorists, masters of language construction, realized that neo-Marxism would be a hard sell. Equity, on the other hand, sounds non-threatening and is easily confused with the American principle of equality, unquote. I plead with you to review this adapted lecture from Rufo and help our community committee find the right formula to deliver ethnic studies without the use of CRT. Thank you for allowing me to deliver my opinion, which is shared with many members of the school district.
After Mr. Lane, we have Victoria Gonzalez.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Admin, Dr. De Leon. My name is Jonathan Lane. California Public Record Act requests are a powerful tool. It's something we are all legally entitled to do. It ensures that employees of public agencies are using our taxpayer monies responsibly and within the law. Every person has this right to file a CPRA. And every person working for a public agency knows that every cent must be accounted for. I've filed many CPRAs with the district over the past couple years. One request was for a rumor that the district paid for Dr. DeLeon's car. The CPRA proved that it was exactly that, a rumor. And I let people know that it was exactly that, a rumor. But my most recent request concerned me. I asked to see the credit card statements of Dr. DeLeon, Ms. Cornelius, Ms. Vacker, and Ms. Kelson. On the last 4 pages was a redacted credit card statement, a whited out statement from Ms. Vacker, approved by Dr. DeLeon, and a redacted invoice from an undisclosed vendor. The total dollar amount, as Mr. Covert said, $7,500. The last page was a letter from Dr. DeGrazia, CC, and Spencer Covert addressed to Dr. DeLeon saying there was a security breach. Let's keep in mind the security breach, the CPRA request took 46 days, well and above beyond what's legally required. Here's the problem. Redacting a credit card statement and an invoice with a vendor is illegal. All POs with vendors show up on the agenda for the public to see. Credit card statements do not. They can only be seen by filing a CPRA. After consulting with legal counsel of the LA Department of Education about the illegality of this, she advised I immediately send this information to the LA County District Attorney Public Integrity Unit for further investigation because these documents should not and cannot be redacted. It's illegal. Tonight, I'm here on public record to state that I've sent this information off to the DA for further review. Any communication before and after this will most likely be subpoenaed by the DA. As board members, you should know this. Also includes text messages and emails to or from one another, to or from anyone in the district, or the public discussing this matter. When they contact me, I'm also going to submit information related to the potential cover-up of this and the $300,000 the board is giving Dr. DeLeon, knowing that there's no need to give her that money. This is our money, and that should have been used for our kids and for our teachers. I don't think you really understand the consequences of me sending this, and I don't believe you've been advised very well by Mr. Covert. Fraud and embezzlement of public monies is a crime. Covering it up is just as much of a crime. If I was you, I would consult with an attorney before approving the general release of Dr. DeLeon tonight. Again, it's been sent to the DA. I don't believe it'll bode very well for you.
And now, Victoria Gonzalez.
Thank you and good evening. I'd like to start with welcoming you, Dr. DeGrazia, as interim superintendent. I sincerely wish you all the best in your new role, and I hope that you'll be able to bridge the gap that has been created in the district by this failing school board over the past 2 years. The reason I'm here tonight is because I have recently been made aware of a local group calling themselves Glendora Families for Social Justice. They claim to be anti-racist, but in their about statement and one of the rules, they say they will, quote, prioritize Black, Indigenous, and people of color over white voices. That racist statement is very alarming, especially considering the large Caucasian population in Glendora. Normally, I wouldn't bother with a group like that, but what concerned me was finding out that not only are 2 of the current school board members, Zandra Borg and Elizabeth Reuter, active members of this group, but a candidate for school board, Monica Garcia, is as well. Everyone has the freedom to join whatever groups they want, but when these people are in position or seeking position to make decisions for our schools and our children, parents have the right to know and the right to ask questions. When the question about the racist statement was raised to both Trustee Borg and candidate Monica Garcia, both of them deleted the question. When the question again was raised and they were also asked why they deleted the question, again, both deleted those comments as well and blocked the parent off their page. And lo and behold, yesterday, the racist declaration was somehow removed from the group rule and about statement after being up since June 2020 when the group was first created. They tried to hide the truth by deleting and blocking, but I have screenshots of all of these on record for anyone who'd like to see them. This reminded me of the GUSD students who were also children of the members of these groups who came forward to the board meeting to voice their concerns. During their comment, the trustees and former superintendent praised the kids, clapped them, thanked them, told them how brave they are. But when other students came up to speak, they were given silence, blank stares, and zero acknowledgement or thank you. Oh, and these latter students, they were Caucasian. So now I see that this was not a coincidence. How can we trust trustees to be fair to our children and act in their best interest if they admittedly and openly stifle Caucasian students' voices and discriminate against them? This racism should not be tolerated in our school board or our school district. Racism, exclusion, and unjust treatment of any kind toward any race or color should not be tolerated. And individuals actively involved in groups that admittedly nurture racism should not be representative of our school district, teachers, parents, or community either. So I'm asking the board members and you, Dr. DeGrazia, do you approve of and support these social justice groups with such openly admitted racist intention and segregation? Do you approve and support candidates who plan to prioritize BIPOC voices over white voices? Do you approve and support people who prioritize BIPOC over white voices and participate in groups that promote and nurture racism to represent GOSD teachers and students? If you don't, if you agree that racism has no place in the school district or in the school board, then what's going to be done about it? I'll email these questions to you as well, and I look forward to receiving your responses from you as a transparent board and not from your attorney. Thank you.
Thank everyone who made a comment tonight. We appreciate hearing from you. Now we have a public hearing. The Governing Board of Glendora will hold a public hearing on the renewal of the Memorandum of Understanding for the College and Career Pathways Partnership Agreement between Glendora Unified School District and Sisters College. Dr. DeGrazia?
Yes, Dr. Kelson. This is a renewal of our MOU with Citrus College and the partnership that they came to see us last year and signed in this very room. And so it's a renewal of that. Dr. Kelson, anything else?
Thank you, Dr. DeGrazia. Just a point of explanation for our community, the CCAP agreement provides opportunities for students at Glendora and Whitcomb High Schools to have access to community college classes while they are still enrolled in our high schools.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for comments from the Board of Education, and we will start with Mrs. Reuter.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be back in school this year. It's been a busy first week, that's for sure. I had the pleasure of visiting 9 sites on the first day of school, and it was really great to get in there and see everyone. I'd be remiss if I didn't really thank the front office staff. On that first day of school, there are so many different questions from parents, children. At the elementary school, there were kids who wouldn't say what their name was, so it was hard for them to figure out where they needed to go, and that front office staff was running a little bit of a, a puzzle trying to figure all of that out. So I really do want to acknowledge all the support staff that make these first days and first weeks a lot easier for families and hopefully for teachers as well. It was really great to see Officers Morrison and Pedraza out there on the first day of school, as well as the campus security aides at the middle schools. Those gentlemen were there with a lot of enthusiasm and smiling faces to sort of set the tone of behavior standards that this year, and it was really a pleasure to see them, and I thank them very much. One of the sites that I really enjoyed visiting was Whitcomb on the first day of school, and getting a very personalized tour from Mrs. Laney Armstrong of the new SAIL program. The SAIL program at Whitcomb stands for Social Academic Independent Living. Back in the spring, when school was getting out, I mentioned that I had gone for the first time to the Adult Transition Program graduation over at Glendora High School and how wonderful that program was. The SAIL program brings another adult transition program over onto the Whitcomb campus, and if I'm saying this correctly, these are the moderate severe adults, correct? Where they will be spending more time on campus, on the Whitcomb campus, whereas the adults in the other program spend more time out in the community. However, that's where this program is really amazing for these members of our community. The Whitcomb facility has created almost a miniature living environment, if you will. There's a classroom, and then next to the classroom is a kitchen. Past the kitchen is a living room / grocery store, And then down and across the hallway is a laundromat. They were getting fitted for their washer and dryer the day that we were there. So the skills that this program will be providing for these adults is truly remarkable. And I think there are 5 or maybe 6 students participating at this time, and I understand that the word is out within our SELPA that we have this program, and there's been several requests for additional students to be able to enter the program. There's also housed at Whitcomb now, and I'm not sure exactly what this is called, but as we try and return non-public school students, so students who have left Glendora Unified for a number of different reasons, if we are able to, if we have the appropriate staff here to be able to support their needs, we are also in the process of bringing those students back into the district as well. When I was there was only 1 at the time, but this is a new program that we're working on slowly but surely as appropriate for the required needs of the individual students that way. And it's a pleasure welcoming these students back into Glendora. So that really was wonderful. I do think that maybe there could be some future needs as far as supplies, if you will, for this program. When I was there were all the cereal boxes, things. Sorry? They need it. So my point is, I hope that Dr. Murray and Laney, all of them, will somehow make the community aware of some of the needs that they might have as far as donations for different furniture items, whatever the case might be, so that we can provide all the different supports that these amazing young adults that they might need. Finally, last week I had the pleasure of attending, with many thanks to the City of Glendora and our partners on the City Council, a Zoom with our sister city of Mocha, Japan. It's been a couple of years due to the pandemic that we haven't been able to have the amazing, what do we call, exchange program with our middle schools. But this meeting clarified that every party engaged in that process is very much looking forward to starting that program back up. The value to the students is immeasurable. The relationships between the staff members, between Dr. DeGrazia and Mr. Osborne, I think they've been there 12, 15 times together this way. The relationship of exposing our students to another culture and our adults in the community and the support is really tremendous. And I really do certainly hope that we're able to, with whatever the federal restrictions are, whatever is happening this way between Japan and the United States, that we can get back to that invaluable program for both our students and the students of the Mocha School District. I also want to thank, and I'm looking forward to, on I think Thursday this week, Mrs. Merkley and I and Dr. DeGrazia will be participating, maybe Mrs. Vicar, in the 3x3 or 4x4, I'm not sure exactly the number of people, with our partners at the city. So 2 city council members and then staff, along with 2 school board members and staff this way, as we continue to work on our shared facilities use agreements and other items that impact both the school district and the city that way. I really do appreciate the partnership that we have that way. So it's off to a busy start. I'm sure all of you have been very busy with your families and in your classrooms, at your sites. I thank you for all your hard work in making our students feel welcome as they come back to school this year. And I look forward to more visits and a great year for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Borg, would you like to go?
Sure. Mrs. Reuter stole my thunder. I too was able to go over to Whitcomb, and literally my heart sang because I don't know if you're aware, but our district is responsible for our special needs students from age 3 to age 22. So these students are from 18 to 22 that will be coming in and learning life skills to help them be able to function on their own, which is really a blessing. I'm so glad we can do this. It's great. I actually kind of got emotional about it because the room was in impeccable condition, and they've been empty for a long time over there because the classrooms haven't been filled. So this is also a way to provide employment for people. We're providing jobs for our folks. We're keeping our facilities in use and not sitting there unused. So there's a lot of good things that are happening because of this program. I also want to welcome to our district the newest, youngest kids, our TK groups at all the elementary schools. If you're not aware, the state of California has now opened it up to not just the 3 months it was open to before, but it's to all children who are 4, and I'm not sure of the birthdays, February. But again, we're getting more students in our district. We're going to have them longer instead of, 13 years. It'll be 14 or 15 with our preschools that are there too. So I welcome those families, and it does add more people to the elementary school, so I know the scheduling gets topsy-turvy, the rooms, and as we mentioned before, we need tiny toilets because by law, we have to have little ones that they have to be able to reach, and sinks too. So we actually made the comment because the bathroom over at Whitcomb got redone for the adults, that what happened to those tiny toilets there, we wanted to save them, because that's going to be a big expense down the road. Went to the several elementary schools, balloons, marquees, the bagpipes at the high school were greeting students, families, and teachers. I hope that the teachers, I saw lots of shiny floors, so I hope that your classroom got either cleaned or carpets got cleaned and everything is done for you, as our staff worked very hard over the summer to get all that done. And I felt cool classrooms. I understand the air conditioners are making it through the heat.
Well, all things considered.
I know, I
For
probably
most-
shouldn't have said
for
anything,
most
right?
classrooms.
Yeah, but we're hoping that it continues to keep you all comfortable. And as I used to tell my students, bring a jacket because your teacher's walking around the room. So if you're cold, you need to wear a jacket. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Fernando?
Thank you. It's wonderful to see everybody this evening. A couple weeks ago, I was able to participate, and thanks to the future Dr. Eric Osborne, on the backpack giveaway that we did a couple weeks ago, where we had members of our community that need that kind of support so that all our students can come to school properly equipped on that first day of school. And that was just a real shining example of the excellent work that our district does to support our community. I want to thank the district staff that was there. I think members of the auxiliary police department were there. So that was just an opportunity, I think, for the district through the use of volunteers. I understand volunteers helped pack those backpacks. I also understand that we had a number of donations from different corporations and businesses. So that was just a real pleasure to participate in. I also want to think of, at this time of the year, all those first-year teachers that are probably feeling like they're drowning right now, that this too will pass. And we are thinking of you as you go into those classes, as you experience those first bumps, as you think through classroom discipline, as you think about helping the differentiated needs of our students. We're thinking about you, those first-year teachers. We're also thinking about the new principals. We have a number of new principals at the district, and we're wishing you well as our classified staff. I do think that we've added some incredible people to the district. At the same time, at the convocation, we were able to celebrate not just the new people that were coming into our district, but the people that have served our district for many, many years. And we had individuals like Pam Edwards and others, Mr. Dykstra and others that have served our district for many, many years in distinction, and it's what really makes the district great. So we continue to thank those that are here, but those that are not here, who may be grading papers right now, all our teachers and staff that do an incredible job to ensure that our students are coming back, because our students are coming back in the year 22 to 23 with impacts of what has happened over the last 2 years. On a number of levels, on a social level, on a mental health level. We continue to see impacts of what the pandemic has done and will continue to do. And so I realize that those dynamics are a continued presence in our classrooms, on our playgrounds, in our worlds, in our community. And so I know that that causes us to engage in a different way as educational professionals. And so my thanks for you, because sometimes we're not trained to handle some of the things we're seeing in our classrooms and on our, in our campuses. I had one other point, but I forget it, so I'll stop there.
Okay. Well, if the thought comes back, you can just jump right in. Okay, Mr. Ellenson? Okay. I only have a couple of things. I got to go to only a couple of schools, but Whitcomb was the first one I went to. And I'm on the Whitcomb PTSA board. And I have to say that I really love that school. And to see Mr. Letourneau get at our PTA meeting, he just choked up because of the SAIL program. It's such a wonderful program, and the classrooms were so clean, and they smelled so good and so shiny, and the teachers and the staff were so excited to welcome these young adults. And the teacher himself is only 23, so he's barely older than his students. But it was just amazing to see that. I also got to go to Sandburg and visit with some of the teachers and staff, and it was just so good. Back to school night started last week, and then they continue throughout this week. So that's always an exciting time for parents to be able to go meet the teacher and just kind of catch up on what's going on. So it's back. It's back. I guess I'm getting really old, because when I was a kid, summer seemed to last forever, and now they're gone before they even start practically. Anyway, those are our comments. So now we will go on to Dr. DeGrazia's report.
Thank you very much, President Merkley, members of the board, executive cabinet members, distinguished guests. My pleasure to present the superintendent's report, some of which you've referenced or highlighted in your comments as board members. But we've had an outstanding start to the 22-23 school year. We welcome back our students, their families, and our staff. I really want to highlight the work of the custodial and maintenance and tech teams to get a school year, speaking of tech, to get a school year up and running from the get-go is a difficult task, and it's laborious, and it's usually 100 degrees. So kudos to them. Our classified staff that works registrations, secondary schools especially, Goddard and Sandburg and Glendora High School, the number of people that it takes to pull off a high school registration, if you've had a chance, even a middle school registration. If you had a chance, check it out. It's a fine, oiled, and tuned machine. Special thanks to many of you that are sitting in the audience tonight, our professional teachers. They are the heart of what we do in our district, and they are at the heart of student learning. Ms. Merkley mentioned the back-to-school nights. They have begun. Cullen kicked it off last week. Stanton, I believe, is tomorrow night. Sellers the night after. Whitcomb and Glendora High School on Thursday night, and then a few more with our middle school next week, as well as Sutherland. So it's a busy time. Out of our 9 schools, as was referenced, we have 3 new principals. Wendy Farinato is our new principal at Cullen Elementary School. Julie Galindo is our new principal at Stanton, and Mr. Andre Jones is our new principal at Sandburg. It wasn't long ago that Dr. Brummett, Glendora High School principal, was brand new, and he's in his 3rd year. All right? Seems like an old pro. We had hired approximately 20 new certificated staff. Last week in this room, we had a luncheon for them. At the end of the luncheon, we had several tables set up here in the front. And as those backpacks were filled with goodies for students, these tables were filled with goodies for new first-year teachers. Thanks to our community and their support and their donations, those teachers went shopping, of these tables, and valuable items necessary to run a classroom. And so much thanks to our community. We've hired 15, and we're going on 20 new classified staff members. We are in the middle of health benefits open enrollment, so a reminder for employees out there to take care of your open enrollment for health benefits. We had our first health fair in 3 years last week as we opened that back up. Just one little publicity piece for new employees. We are still in need of applicants for certain positions, especially noon duty supervisors at schools, elementary and middle. We need folks. We're in need. I think we recently posted a position and we needed 10 of those positions across the district. We were able to fill 2. We have special education aid positions available, instructional aid positions. So if you're interested and you have that time, we know it's a unique schedule, but you have that time to support your student and their colleagues at one of our sites, please consider it. Our enrollment, as expected, has declined slightly. We're continuing to monitor our accounts daily. As those come in, those usually increase each day as people realize school started. That's right. We need to get back and get going. So a few are trickling back in. Elementary's holding pretty strong. Middle school, we knew that was going to be the area that was going to be down from day 1 to day 1, 21, 22, to day 1, 22, 23, over 100 students less in the middle school grade span than the previous year. Our goal students, our online program, is about 100 students strong. That's less than half the total of last year. To be expected, many people coming back in person, and it's going very, very well. Dr. Fernando mentioned the backpack distribution. There were approximately 500 backpacks distributed with the support of those local service groups. Thank you, Mr. Osborne, for your leadership with that. We have also reminded all staff and parents about the standard response protocol safety training. Very important, good time of the year, right up front, right at the beginning, to remind us all about those practices and those procedures. When I was at Cullen's Back to School Night last week, much talk about volunteers and bringing volunteers back to the classroom, and applications are available, and volunteers are being processed currently. Communication we will be sending out as a key goal for our board and our district. We always look to communicate in better ways and more consistent ways. So you'll see a letter from me coming out about that very aspect very soon. We had a survey most recently, and so we will share the results of that survey and some things we will do to improve. Fall athletics are underway. Volleyball, cross country, tennis, football, and then Goddard and Sandburg and Glendora High School are hosting their first dances this week. So extra energy and excitement around. And then, Ms. Merkley, I'd like to relinquish the rest of my time to Dr. Sarah Nahara, our Director of one of Special Projects. And Sarah's going to present an update on our services being provided to our English language learners and a new piece of language line interpretation translation services that we can offer our students in our district. Dr. Nahara.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity to serve Glendora Unified in my new role. I really appreciate this opportunity. Our overall goal with serving our EL community is to promote and support a plurilingual community of students and parents. So if we look at data over the last 10 years, I want to talk about our EL program just a little bit, but before I do any of that, I want to make sure that I honor and acknowledge the hard work of my predecessor, Kristen Heathcote. She worked this job for 18 years, and she built, enhanced, and supported our EL services, families, bilingual instructional aids, and many others in her role. And I'm honored to follow in her footsteps, giant footsteps. So thank you for that, and thank you, Kristen. Over the past 10 years, we have changed in our EL community. Thank you. Currently, we have about 390 students, about 6% of our population. This is about a 2% increase of students over a 10-year span. When I was actually looking at the data, I was surprised by this. I thought it was going to be a larger increase. But when you consider the decrease in enrollment, it follows that. But what I found most interesting was that currently we're about 46% Spanish as the first language. 10 years ago, this was 65%. So you're going to see a change in the languages. Look at Mandarin, which is now our second most first language of our students. Before it was Arabic. Mandarin 10 years ago was 4%. It is now 20% of our EL students. So you're seeing some changing demographics when it comes to our EL students. And I think this is important to look at when we're looking at how we're going to support not only our students, but our families. So if we look at the next slide, one of the first things we do to support our EL students is that are especially new to California schools is administer the initial LPAC. And our ability to service our LPAC, our EL students, grows effectively and efficiently when we are able to administer this. Because when we administer the LPAC, and this is administered to students the first time in California when their home language survey registration, as Dr. DeGrazia referred to, indicates another language other than English. And right now—
Dr. Naharo, I'm over here. Would you explain LPAC?
Sure.
Thank you.
The English Language Proficiency Assessment in California. Thank you. And this test, I can explain even more, is used to measure how well students in kinder through 12th grade understand English when it is not their primary language. And the information from the LPAC helps us to provide support in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So when students come in and their home language indicates a language other than English, we administer this. Generally, this is our kindergarten, our TK kindergarten, first grade students. However, this also is our newcomers at middle school and high school. Currently, we have about 70 students that we need to administer the initial LPAC for. We have 30 days from the start of school to do this. 30 days to know who they are, notify parents, administer the test, get the results, and make sure that we are then providing the most appropriate services to support our students. That's a short timeline, 30 calendar days, if even shrinks it. So one of the things that I'm so very thankful for and grateful for this year is that in order to administer the LPAC, we have relied heavily on a team, an expert team of retired teachers that have supported us, as well as some substitute teachers that are now working in the district. So as I entered upon this position, I realized I needed some help. There's not enough of me to go around, and there's not enough of our retired teachers to go around to do this. So I enlisted the help of our elementary intervention teachers, and they gladly got on board because they know the ultimate desired outcome is to increase staff knowledge and requirements to support our EL students. And one of our major interventions is our EL instruction, directed, integrated, and primary language support. So by now having our intervention teachers, at least at the elementary level, being a source of support is going to help us guide the information so we can get it to the teachers as well to support our instruction to our EL students. The next piece that I'm really excited to talk about is language line solutions. We have a commitment to communicate with all of our families here. What Language Line Solutions is an on-demand oral interpretation service that encompasses over 240 languages. They are contracted with the state of California, which allows us a very reduced rate for this service. And what it will do is improve the student experience through a multi-language outreach connection with families. And let me give you an example. And I'm going to continue with Dr. DeGrazia's example of registration. A parent walks into any of the school offices and they need to register, but they're new to the country and they speak a language that nobody in the office is able to speak. Then what happens? Well, especially in the summer, it's even more of a challenge because we don't have our bilingual assistants working in the summer. So then there's phone calls, we try to get somebody work and so forth, and sometimes we don't even have that language. So there's a lag time in servicing our parents. With the use of Language Line, any staff member can actually call Language Line, and if you go to the next slide, you'll see all you have to do is call the number. It's the 1866 number. You provide Glendora's unique code. You follow the prompts for your language, and within minutes, you are connected with an interpreter. So office staffs can do this for registration. Teachers can do this for conversations with parents. There's many opportunities to communicate with our parents instantly. So it's for what we call that spontaneous oral communication. And I think as a family that walks in, and you don't have to wait a week for somebody to come and call you or talk to you, what a blessing this service can provide and welcome all of our families. And for our teachers who need to just tell a parent something real quick. Hey, I need you to make sure that, so-and-so has their instrument tomorrow. But they can't have that communication because they don't speak that language. They can call Language Line, immediately make a three-way call, and that problem is solved, and there's no waiting for them to do that. So I am bringing that for approval for you this evening. There's a lot of other services that Language Line can provide. We're going to go baby steps, one at a time with oral interpretation. They have other ways that we can use their oral interpretation, where we can even have a direct line that can be a Spanish line. So the Spanish-speaking parent or the Mandarin-speaking parent can call that line, and that person then calls the school site in that language, and that really honors that parent and what the communication that they need. So I will be sending out.
Dr. Navarro, I do have a question
Yes.
about that. Do you know how many languages are spoken in Glendora? I know we have those three main, but.
Total, off the head, I don't want to give you a number and have it be wrong, but I can tell you ballpark. Goodness gracious, when I was entering all of this in CalPads last week, we had Dutch, we had Italian, we had Vietnamese, we had a few other language that I don't even know. I would say at least another 10 languages that make up the remaining 16% that I didn't mention in the first three. Korean, Vietnamese, so I would say at least a good handful of 10 other than what our major languages are. And they're covered in Language Line. Language Line has access to all of those.
I know several years ago it was in the 40s,
Yeah.
but it was like minor.
I think, like I said, I think that I didn't want to speak with an exact number, but those were the ones that I was entering last week into CalPads of all of our newcomers. So, and then on the last slide, what's in the works? So we want to work on continuing to expand training on what we call the summative LPAC. I spoke to you about the initial LPAC. The summative LPAC is what we assess all of our language learners in the spring so that we can reclassify and redesignate them. And one of the goals of this year is to really make sure that all of our teachers teaching ELD at the middle schools and high schools and all of our supports at the elementary understand what that assessment entails so that we can help prepare our kids to have the most success on that on that assessment, excuse me. We want to and then enhance the use of that data. We have ILIT, which is an EL curriculum for grades 6 through 12, and provide more training and support so that can be implemented with fidelity and effectiveness, and have a trainer of trainers model for best practices with EL, and work with the high school to talk about and increase the state seal of biliteracy completion of our students there. So there's a lot in the works. I just got started. I've only been doing this for a month, so grant me grace, but I will continue to support all of our community and whatever other needs we have. And then I have questions, comments, compliments, or things that you care about.
Thank you. Good one.
Yeah. I love your enthusiasm, Dr. Navarro.
That's the way I am.
Yeah, I know. I can tell that you are excited about this, so thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want to say?
I just want to mention that this is in relation to Educational Services Consent Item 9.3, just for everybody's information, that this is the background information that goes along with that consent items. Oftentimes, we approve consent item on blanket. I really do appreciate this information, and it's really important for us all to understand what the changing demographics of our school district look like and how we're going to be able to support all those kids. This is a really great, thorough presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
My compliment is thank you for your enthusiasm. These kids are like little sponges. They learn quick, but they need the support as well. Thank you. Appreciate all your work.
Okay. Now is our presentation. Dr. DeGrazia, do you want to introduce Dr. White?
Sure, that'd be my pleasure. Dr. White is here to present as a response to requests from our community and related to our strategic plan and the goals of this district. Dr. Judy White was the 12th Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. She earned her academic scholarship at Occidental College, where she obtained a degree in sociology. She received her master's in education with an emphasis in counseling from Cal State San Bernardino and a teaching credential from UC Irvine. She later attended UC Riverside. Yes, Highlanders, way to go, Judy. For her administrative credential, and Azusa Pacific University for her doctorate in educational leadership. Dr. White, welcome.
Thank you. It seems like it's been a while. I've been trying to get here, and you guys have mandated meetings that were time sensitive, like LPAC and budget and other great things. But I am here tonight to share with you, after serving from February to June, wanting to present the findings of the listening tour. As we go forward, the invitation actually came from the superintendent on behalf of the board, and they asked me to come and to collect information as a third party. Now, is there a clicker? Are you going to be supporting me? Okay, let's go. All right. All right, thank you. So I'll do this, okay, if you can see me. All right, I hate that next slide. It gets on my nerves. But anyway, they wanted a third party that could be neutral, objective, seeker of the truth, and also be able to report objectively. So the goal was to increase communication. They also wanted to target areas of need, but there was some social media issues at the time too that they wanted to for me to respond to that if that emerged in the tour. And then the last piece was to support pandemic transitions. So you have to remember that 1.8 billion students were impacted all across the world, and there was going to be an impact. So as we go forward, we want to make sure that we know that the process did include meeting with the superintendent and cabinet members, and it was like an interview because they wanted me to share my approach. And you've heard about my experience, but the individual humanity part of me, I'm a listener as well as a reflector, and I care about all people, and I wanted to maintain objectivity. We developed a targeted schedule. We launched the listening tours. There were 11 distinct meetings, over 1,000 responses, over 250 people. I used the approach of scripting, just writing down everything that was being said for the purpose of analyzing for themes as well as patterns. The most important part was to develop recommendations. And in some of the meetings, I did ask the audience, what do you recommend as a solution? Because we can't just stay in the realm of the concern. We have to be able to come to recommendations. And so here we are presenting to you the board. Okay. Why an oral report? Because it is a summary, because I did have to go through everything and make sure that the themes were represented by the voices of everyone. But also to maintain confidentiality. More than one occasion, people asked that they not be identified. They wanted to be anonymous, and so I didn't want to put anything in writing and so much scripting that you could identify a person. But more importantly, I want to focus on responding responsibly. So the board has to listen, and then it's your role to say, what do we respond to? Now, one of the things that has happened is because we're later in the year, you will find that some of the things have already been responded to. And then you might want to say, since it came up in the report, can we continue that particular recommendation? I brought this water bottle up to drink if I get thirsty, but also as I took this water bottle to several of the meetings, and I asked people sitting around me, what do you see? And people on that side of the room, they saw it said 16.9 ounces drinking. Somebody else saw the Stater Brothers label. Somebody else saw where it was bottled. But they couldn't all see the whole bottle. And so I was letting them know when we sit down together to gather information, you are seeing it from your perspective. But that doesn't mean that the person that's seeing it from this perspective is wrong. They're just seeing it from a different perspective. So it's important that when I share some of the information, somebody might say, Well, that's not what I heard, but that might not have been the meeting you were in. And that a person's experience in Glendora might be different depending on where they are. But me, as your consultant, my job was to turn the bottle around and see it from everybody's perspective, see the themes and patterns, and then come up with the recommendations. And sometimes I had to look at the top, and sometimes I had to look under the bottom because things were emerging. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So it's an angle, it's a perspective, but it is that person's truth from the angle that they're looking at. They're individuals, they are experiences, they have social narratives. So as we go forward, I wanted to continue with intentional questions. And with intentional questions, and I'm past the water bottle, I asked this: how does Glendora Unified show they care about all students? How can the district show more caring for all? And what do you want the superintendent to know? So I am on the next slide. Okay, thank you. And I particularly use the word care because care represented to me an interest in that group, a concern, a look out for that you're paying attention. And then also, how can the district show more caring for all? It was about ideas for improvement and what that individual felt like what was important to them. Okay, so we're moving to the next slide, and it says trust, communication, and bullying. So trust was the primary theme amongst staff. Every single meeting, whether it was classified, certificated, multiple certificated meetings, the word trust emerged. So you had to know that that was a common theme. The second, communication, that was the primary theme of parents. And many parents felt that they got information late, or they didn't know what was going on, or something negative happened, they didn't hear the explanation about it. So communication was that. And then the primary word from the students was bullying. Whether I was talking to elementary students, middle school students, or high school students, there was a concern about bullying. And the thing that kind of broke my heart a little bit, that teacher part of me, is when the high school students were saying, but there's nothing that can be done about it. We can't make any recommendations because there's nothing that can be done. And when students feel hopeless, then that means that we have to intervene at even a greater level. And so all the groups used the word division, that something was going on that was causing a division. Some of the staff blamed other staff. Parents, they recognized the impact of the pandemic. So the parents clearly talked about how the pandemic was causing some division because rules were changing, protocols were changing. And the student voice, they said they saw division in their community and they based it on media. They based it on media, the student voice. So as we look at the themes, theme 1 falls under communication, transparency, and intentional trust building. So these are some things that I saw and that we wanted to address. So as I stated, some things will be dated, but it clearly came out that they wanted to create a clear back-to-school plan for the 22-23 school year that outlines protocols for parent engagement, including back-to-school nights, access to school campus, expectations for student behavior, and clearly delineated allowable school activities. Some parents said that it depends on what school your child was attending, what you could do. And they gave an example, even on one of the nights of our listening tour, there was a school that was having some type of open house and eating and some wonderful things happening there, but they had asked for that same thing at a different school and it was denied. And so they wanted consistency. The other part was to develop a communication to all staff and parents that can be accessed online, post new school year protocols, and keep consistent at all schools. Provide a directory to all staff that identifies new leaders in their role and describe their responsibilities and place in the chain of command. There were a lot of new leaders that had been hired over the last 2 years, and sometimes principals would receive who's doing what, but their perception, some of the certificate and classified felt that the information was not available to them. Even though we know that some things had been developed, whether they could get their hands on it or not became the question. Increase stakeholder input when making decisions that impact the stakeholder, and then provide for the why when decisions are made that changes how things were done in the past or to add clarity. So if I can give you an example using this, there were some cameras put in at the district office. And even when I first came to talk to staff, I had heard and was aware that there were some safety issues, and that's why the cameras were placed there. This is what I had been told, and some examples had been given to me. But the majority of stakeholders weren't told that, and some of the staff who might have been in that area may have thought that the cameras were placed to watch their work. So you can see how that would cause a problem if the why wasn't given. So there were other cases that they felt, if you just told us why, then we wouldn't have to make up information or get paranoid about anything. So that's an example of why it was important to be able to talk about the why. Theme 2 is pre-pandemic protocols, reinstatement of committees, access to school sites, access to extracurricular activities. So the recommendations for theme 2 are reinstate as much as safely possible face-to-face interactions for IEP meetings, discipline hearings, and parent-teacher conferences. So we know that you do have new protocols for this year, but at the time of the listening tour, they wanted to ensure that it happened. Develop a master plan with input from previously established committees to address current curriculum and student behavioral issues. I believe was already raised the fact that things have changed for students, but some of it emerged in behavior. So every single group did talk about the behavior of students since the pandemic has changed. I've worked with several districts across the state. It is consistent. It is not unique to Glendora, but student behavior was accelerated, and certain signs that you may not have seen even in kindergarten, you would see it now. But from K through 12, there was a concern about student behavior, and they wanted a plan, they wanted committees to address it. Reinstate and support pre-pandemic parent engagement activities, partnerships with the PTA, and volunteer opportunities. Again, as I had mentioned, in consistent access, they want to see the same level of parent engagement as was before. Ensure all students have full access to all extracurricular activities. Students did note that they felt that there were certain students that had more access than others. And there was an example that was given by one group of students, and you know, I just love this wonderful presentation that we had tonight. It's so beautiful to see the students who received that award for the state. But there are some high school students who expressed that there are travel teams and there are other groups in the community that when they come to the high school, they actually are more in charge of the team access, and so that a student who may not have participated in the community won't have the same level of access. This was shared by more than one student, and they were head nodding, and so there was a perception from their view that there were certain students that did not have the same level of access. So that's something that you can review. So we're just saying that ensure all students have full access to all extracurricular activities. In theme 3, the mental health support was very, very clear. Behavior interventions, bullying on campus and on social media. Direct funding to mental health services for students and staff. So I know that looking at your board notes, you have directed money for behavior and mental health, but is it widely known? So that might come back to communication. Provide ongoing counseling and mental health support to students and families. There were certain situations where parents were saying under the pressure, parents were arguing with each other outside of schools, and so they're thinking, well, who's going to help us? So that I'm letting you know that they're asking for help between students and families. Offer consistent consequences for students who bully. So when I pushed the students a little bit more, so why do you feel it would never change? They felt that the consequences were inconsistent and ineffective. These are the voices of students saying whatever we're using to punish bullies is not working. And some of the students were sharing voices of empathy, saying maybe that child is being bullied at home, but so they don't need to be punished and kicked out. Maybe they need more counseling. But and then the last part of the bullying, though, it had to do with social media, because and that's newer. You know, I'm 67, so we didn't have to deal with that years ago. but it's so sophisticated in 2022, we have to find solutions that will address the social media bullying. And they felt that it was stronger than they felt adults realized. So that was something. And then, of course, one of the last meetings came after the Texas elementary shooting. So then there was a shift in the voices of the parents who wanted to make sure we are keeping all campuses safe. So the beginning parents were saying, we want full access, but then after an incident that was of national, notice, then they were asking to make sure that there was safety in the district. Thing 4, I really want you to listen to this one, because this is where I had to really look at this water bottle all over, upside down. There were parents that I met with that felt that Glendora could show more caring by celebrating multicultural holidays honoring all groups. So this was requested by the parent voices. And they also talked about ensuring that translators are available for those needing those services, especially mandated IEPs and educational documents. And it was very refreshing to hear the report from the staff member who talked about things that they were going to do. But it's important that parents do understand what's being said, and it's important that they understand the things that are supposed to be in writing, that they've been translated properly. So this was a recommendation that came from not only parents but also staff about translation of documents. Support, here's another thing, to support the needs of members in the community that feel disenfranchised, targeted, and marginalized people of color. So one of the groups that I was listening to, their experiences were different than, I'd say, the majority of the parents who I listened to. But in that particular group, they had strong feelings about how they are treated on campuses, and they do feel that there is a difference based on either their skin color or their language. And the incident that happened that everybody was surprised, that came in on the television, it caused their children to have an emotional reaction. And in that particular group that I listened to, they talked about children were afraid to go to school and that there were emotional problems that occurred. Now, some of our parents and teachers who are looking at it from a different perspective, when I asked them about that incident, most of them said, not that they didn't believe that the incident happened, because they saw the same news thing, but they were not aware of the impact. So this is the piece that you have to really, really work on, is when you have different parents seeing things from a different perspective, you still have to meet the needs of all. And then I'll tell you some things how to get there in a further slide. But that was a very specific group who felt marginalized, who felt disenfranchised, and also targeted on occasion. But by the same time, I had a group of parents and community members who felt that they were unheard, that they were jaded, and devalued as generational residents. So this is this balance that we're looking at. There are people that are very proud of being 3 and 4 generations in Glendora, and they should be. They've accomplished a lot, but they were seeing it from their perspective, and I don't think that they knew that there was another perspective from a different experience of people, or not. But the solution is going to be based on actually bringing people together. You've got to bring people together, and it's not good enough for them to know that I heard it, but I think it's good enough for them to get together and they could hear it from each other and move forward together. So the recommendation is to support all groups, every single group, so everybody feels valued and honored as a human being. Provide opportunities for targeted parent convenings that focus on needs and solutions. So when, sometimes people don't want to have targeted parent groups, and I've always believed in them all my career, but I've always said that even if it's a targeted parent group that has a special need, it should never be exclusive. It should be open to all so that they're always finding solutions together. So this is theme 4. And then
on theme 5, which is the final theme, is professional development and retention of quality staff and character development. So recommendations for theme 5 provide district-wide professional development that equips both classified and certificated staff with skills to address grading practices, inclusion, student behavior, bullying, mental health, and student engagement. And then when I struggled, I said, am I going to write down the LGBTQIA population? That was a student voice. Those were student voices not only at the high school, but it was at the middle school as well. And they felt that teachers didn't know how to address it. And you have to decide as a community, but I had to record it because it was a voice that I did hear, and it was a very loud perspective of students. And that was a group. And then direct funding to maintaining staff to student ratio and maintain the efficacy of the GATE program. There were either rumors that the GATE program was not going to be fully supported, but the GATE program came up in more than one meeting, and so we wanted to put that as a recommendation. And then implement a deliberate character development program that provides staff and students with skills for valuing all people. Things don't just happen because you think they should happen. You have to be intentional. So the strongest districts that I've seen, they've either come together as community members and say, okay, looked at several programs, say this what meets our needs, but you have to do something where students are taught how to care about each other, and staff is enlightened, as well as the the administration. They want to know what are some handles, what are some languages that we can use. So character counts is one. Be Kind People Project, the third option, Move This World. These are 4 different programs. 2 of them I work directly with, 2 of them I research, but you've got to think about what are we going to do in Glendora to move forward, okay? And then build for your team a feeling of oneness, of dependence on one another, and of strength to be derived by unity. That's Vince Lombardo quote. And then my quote to you: I've never met so many bright people, especially teachers and parents and students. Your passion and your brilliance must be funneled to ignite unity and advocacy for all from both your and their perspective. And that's my message, my final message to you. So this concludes my report from the listening tour, and I'm here for questions from the board.
Thank you, Dr. White. We'll start with Ms. Borg. Okay. Mrs. Reuter, are you ready?
I can at least get started. I think we can probably just have a rolling conversation. The message of supporting all groups, and you talk about these character development programs that provide staff and students with skills for valuing people. These 4 options are organizations that come in and help you do something. Like, I've got to be honest with you, me personally, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to take the different perspectives that people have on a bottle and figure out how to bring them together to have all the voices equally heard and valued that way. What I am hearing you say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that these 2 different groups of people were feeling undervalued, and if I might go so far as to say that either group would feel that the only way for them to be heard was to push the other one down?
I did not say that, but I clearly did not say that.
No, I'm trying to understand if that's the dynamic that's being felt. Sorry, that this group A felt like their voice was being pushed down for B and vice versa.
I can't say that I heard them saying in opposition of other groups.
Okay.
I'm just saying this is what they're looking at, and this is what they're looking at, and I'm saying what they're saying are 2 different sides, and both of their needs have to be addressed. But because of their perceptions, I believe that it has to be done together. And when I think about doing things together, we've done district-wide book clubs, we've done unity conferences where you specifically say, we're going to have a conference, and it's going to be a unity conference for all of our parents or our administrators, depends. And you design it for dialogues and panels and moving together. The other things I've seen is just an extra focus on student engagement, that when you really focus on student engagement and their needs at a very, very high level, you get groups advocating, and they're so caught up in that, they start seeing the value of each other. Okay.
Is it appropriate for me at this point in time to ask you to describe a little bit more what the needs of these groups, some of the, if you could give any context to some of the comments or some whatever themes within those groups?
So there was one group that was predominantly people of color, and who were feeling, and I captured it, marginalized, disenfranchised, targeted, and feeling that they were not experiencing Glendora equally as others described. When I met with the student group, and the student group was not predominantly people of color, and they were very complimentary about their experiences, and I asked them very specifically, do you feel that all students have the same experience that you have? And they all start shaking their head no. And when they began to describe that other students might have a different experience, it ended up being children of color. So we can say, I mean, this is the students' voices, but they're saying that things are said, and they did, like I said before, point back to their perception that it was caused by media, that this whole division, and they used the word clearly, division. Okay, so then you go back to the other groups, when they're still feeling, if they're feeling unheard, they're feeling jaded, they're feeling like they're being accused of things that they do not ascribe to, that's still a strong feeling. So you've got two groups that have these strong feelings about not being included. And I know people they hate that word inclusion, but I'm telling you, if you don't feel included, there's a lack of inclusion. So that's just the way it is if you look it up in the dictionary. So those groups, I'm saying that there's something going on, and the school district would become healthier by addressing it and not ignoring it. And that some of the programs that I did list, they are programs that are intentional, that they've been tried and true. You can look at the districts that have used them, but it has brought more unity. And that's what you want, more unity. Not people feeling like they have to take a side. Because I know from every meeting that I was in, people love their children, and they want their children to be successful. And people love Glendora, but they're having different experiences in Glendora.
Dr. White, when you say the district, I know a lot of it, gets looked at, the five of us, but there's no way for all of us to be out there and promoting these things. What can each individual cite? Do you have recommendations for, because it's not just, in my opinion, in very humble opinion, it's not just high school kids. It starts younger too. So it's got to be something that's built in the system, like these character counts programs or whatever that they're working on as elementary kids, middle school kids.
All levels.
The time that we spend as parents, I think it's, it's a team, it's a village. It works, it's a village, it's teachers, it's parents, it's everyone in the community. It's a big job.
It's a big job, and it's not just your job.
No,
it's not the board job. The board's job is to sanction it and to say, yes, we agree with it, we've heard it. But the actual work, it is at the site. The actual work is in the PTAs and the other parent groups. But your staff, superintendent, and I heard all these accolades of praise. I know you can do this with your eyes closed, but has to design it and say, okay, this is what we're going to be doing in the elementary, this is what we're going to be doing in middle and high school. And it starts with professional development of the teachers. The teachers have to know what you're doing.
And accountability as well.
Yes.
Because I've been on the campuses. I've heard lots of things from students, and the same things you heard too, that sometimes they go unnoticed. They feel like they're not, so they just take it.
And I'm glad
That's sad to me.
It is sad. One of the meetings I had with the elementary group, there was only one black male in that group, and his head was on the table, I'd say 60% of the meeting. And it was other students around him speaking up for that one child, and that's just one child. However, it's still just a perspective. I'm not trying to stay
Right.
on one perspective, but it is a perspective that exists, and that's why we can't ignore it. But it's a community effort, and when it's done well, everybody knows. Your Rotary knows. All your groups are together on one accord, moving forward. After you've made the decision, we're going to be intentional about unity. That's the decision has to be made. We will be intentional about unity, and in that intentionality, these are the steps that we're going to take. And it usually takes a few years, but you have to start somewhere. But the main thing, too, for people in the audience, I want them to know I heard them. I saw their perspective, but I also want them to know that there were other perspectives, but they have to hear it from the voices of their peers, their like groups. So community people hear from community people, parents hear from parents, but there's an opportunity here because you've got good-hearted people, but sometimes they're just looking at it from one perspective.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So one of the things I'm hearing, I'm not saying you're saying this, I'm hearing, that is really difficult to do because it's not just a Glendora problem, it's a national problem, is that it is culturally appropriate now to dehumanize the other. We do it with our language, we do it with our rhetoric. We talk about others, no matter what those other people may be believing, as if they're not human, right? So you have this kind of dynamic both nationally but also in Glendora happening, and you're talking about unity when that is not really what's being espoused to our young people at all levels, right?
Yes.
That's not what we're seeing in the news. That's not what we're seeing from our leaders. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't see that among ourselves as a community. So talking about unity is an unpopular thing because nowadays, from my opinion, I'm just speaking for myself, unity equals weakness. And emphasizing your own point of view and your own perspective is strength. So for me, for example, because I have two high schoolers, well, one in college now, to see from that other side of the bottle and to engage with them about the interaction, the value, the potency of social media, right? That causes me to have to look at the other side of the bottle. That's really hard for me because I didn't grow up with social media. I didn't grow up with Instagram, right? So beyond the district level kinds of things, right? As you talked to the community, right? What's one first small step that we can all begin with?
Okay.
It doesn't have to be meetings. It doesn't have to be rhetoric from this or rhetoric from the audience. What is one small step? Right? If we're all going to be community leaders, that means we have to get outside of ourselves and our own opinions. So what's one small step that we can take?
I think the first step is the declaration, saying who you are and what you're about. And then the one group felt that having multicultural celebrations did not put down any other groups. It just took their invisibility away that they were seeing. But they didn't want it. They wanted everybody to be celebrated. But what I've learned is that you do not lose anything by celebrating cultures. You only lose when you don't put humanity above that. That humanity is the part that has to be emphasized, that we're all human beings, and as you stated, you understand the whole fact that the problems we're having is people have dehumanized certain groups. So that would be one thing, and that would be a response that particular group wanted. And then with the other group, say, yeah, we're celebrating being part of Glendora. And, I come from a multiracial family. My son-in-law's white. I got Hispanic grandkids. And so I know that you can create this environment where one doesn't feel better than the other, that we are family. And that is what people are really asking for. But just because you don't talk about the differences does not mean that you're less family. So that's the error I think that some people were making, thinking that if you don't say anything, then everything goes away. No, you have to talk about it. You have to be transparent with one another. And then the other one little thing, it's not little, but you have to have some professional development. Teachers and administrators were saying there's so much in the media, we don't even know what to say. Now, I heard somebody get up here and talk about CRT, and I'll tell you what, that does not belong. And I'm saying that as a 42-year-old, 42 years in the profession in your schools. But don't let that be a distraction for valuing people and who they are and the culture that they bring. So that stuff can stay somewhere else. But there are things that have to be done that value human beings.
I also want to thank you in recommendation or theme 5, because I know it came from a student, where you cite the LGBTQIA population. Because Generation Z, who's in our schools, predominantly when you look at the data, have very different perspectives on issues of identity and sexuality than their parents do, and then their previous generation does. And I think it's another area, but we're also talking about people's lives, that we need to have a dialogue around. And understand, for me at least, it's understanding where our students, how they see the world, how they experience the world. But I appreciate your tenacity of bringing that to our attention, because I think it is something that, at least in my interactions with middle school and high school students, they've expressed to me. So thank you for that.
No, I just want to piggyback on that one, and then please keep going. The LGBTQIA population, that was more of the student's voice, or that was the teacher's voice not knowing how to engage with that Can you say a little more, I guess, is what I'm saying.
So to be totally transparent, the teacher group, they didn't know who I was. They didn't know the intent of everything, so they asked for a second meeting. So in the second meeting, we didn't want to just repeat everything we had in the first meeting, and one of the teachers just asked, can you share anything that the student said, the student's voice? And I say, I'm going to share something. I say, I usually don't do that in the listening tour. It's all about listening, but I'm going to do it for purpose, because I need to hear your voices. So then I mentioned that what came up in the student listening tour was, one of the concerns was the LGBTQIA group. And one teacher said, just one, she said, I don't even know how to respond to that. She said, I don't know what's expected. Because there are certain people, their perspective is going to be different. Their experiences coming to this is different. So what does the administration want them to say? The students were saying things like, I want to be called by a different pronoun. That's so different, but that's where they are. However, they still didn't want their parents to know that. So it's just, but then when you look at suicide rates amongst young people, especially those who are finding themselves and struggling in that area or discovering, they do, that rate is higher. So we're going to have to do something to address it. And I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. I'm just saying it needs to be addressed.
Were there any other sort of topics like that that teachers brought forward as far as uncertainty on how to proceed? Any other specifics that way?
Yes, it would be the discipline. So there was a teacher voices that in one of the meetings that shared they're sympathetic towards students having gone through the pandemic. And so you want to give them more grace. But they are taking over the classroom and they're misbehaving, so where's the balance? Give me some skills. I went to school, they're saying, I went to school to teach content. I could teach reading and math and science. I didn't go to school to teach emotional behavior, learn that. So they need that. That was a void that was mentioned in one of the meetings, that they need the skill set to be able to properly address the students and what's expected. Yes.
Let me turn this on. Along those lines, with the teacher group, was there any concern about limiting curriculum?
Limiting curriculum?
The teaching of curriculum.
One teacher group did ask me to look at some videos from past board meetings that address that, but they didn't specifically say limit. I did not hear that term used.
Mean to limit you to
Yeah.
a term, but just any concerns about teaching practice or,
I think, if my memory serves me correctly, it was in administrative, because I did meet with managers, that they came up, they said, we don't even know what to tell our teachers. There's so much tension around in terms of curriculum that we don't even know. And that was not the majority of them, but that voice did come out, that there was a concern. It was not a primary theme in the teachers. The teachers' primary theme was trust.
Could we speak about that, please?
What kind of trust? Levels of trust. I'd say it was trust in the new leadership. It was trust in not knowing what was going to happen. It was uncertainty. That's why it fell over into communication too, and what was supposed to happen. There were concerns about the pandemic and about decisions made in the pandemic. But trust, the word trust was used multiple times.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. White, for such a comprehensive review of everything. And you touched on so many different points, from professional development to safety to race issues to character issues to mental health. I appreciate all of this. I think my encouragement is not wanting to see this work go to waste, right? But to use this, and maybe this is for Dr. DeGrazia, of like, how do we take this and not just have it be this very valuable work that Dr. White did with all of these constituents and stakeholders, but get incorporated into our district goals, into our vision, into our strategic plan, into what we do, and be accountable to, so that we come back to this regularly to make sure we're making progress in these different themes, and didn't just learn about it and then put it on the shelf.
Yeah, I think you saw some of that even with Dr. Naharo's presentation, some of the things that were integrated there, and some of the things that I announced in my report that we have already integrated and will address. And she certainly brought forward many recommendations that would align very well with our strategic plans and goals for the past and for the future.
Okay, I'd just like to see this be something that's brought regularly back up in board meetings, whatever the cadence is that we bring up, you know, sort of progress reports and check-ins on accountability with progress towards achieving board goals. Include this every time we do that as well. And as much as we, you know, post and share our board goals and everything else, let's do the same with, you know, what we found from this tour as well.
So do you think they'll be separate board goals, or we will incorporate them?
I mean, I don't know. I think that's probably something that whenever, you know, the board does its next revision of board goals, whenever that process takes place, you know, it could be integrated. But for now, you know, just add it along with our existing board goals, tie them together to the extent we can, but just make sure we're you know, doing something with this.
If I could say something in closing too, is Board Member Borg had talked about, she used the word accountability. And in some of the districts that have been successful when they started at this place, they looked at their board goals and saw, where are you measuring that you're making progress in this area? So of course, you guys are already looking at your data, so you need to continue to look at your data in a disaggregated way. But another area was complaints. When you get complaints to your office, because people make complaints, disaggregating those complaints and seeing about their validity, and then over time, they should be being reduced if you're properly addressing some of the issues.
Thank you, and thank you for providing additional context to a lot of these different bullet points. You did a great job with the executive summary and of giving us some examples to better understand the experiences that these 11 different groups had. I guess I would just wonder, I mean, I'll just be completely honest, me personally, it feels like a lot. Like I don't know how to take it from all of this information and how to start working it down. You talk about how professional development for the staff. I'm thinking to myself, my God, that's one more thing for the staff to have on their plate as they're trying, you know what I'm, it's very important, but it just feels very big to me right now. And so you said you had 1,000 comments that you received through the course of the 11 groups. Are there any questions that we didn't ask that you feel like we really should know? Is there anything that we didn't get to the heart of right now?
What about the teachers?
When I said staff, and I say that the primary theme was lack of trust, that was the main teacher voice. And so I don't know what else is missing from the teachers that they would want more specifically. Professional development came up. So I'm not sure what the. At the time of the meetings, the trust factor was mainly with your former superintendent. So I think that has been resolved in terms of you don't have that person in that seat anymore. So that was.
Hey, we're gonna.
No comments.
Yeah.
I apologize. I know this wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I do wonder if any sort of additional footnote or any sort of additional documentation could be provided and made available for us to gain more context on this. A lot of people, same analogy with your water bottle, have different questions and are looking for different comments, or looking for different kinds of feedback, are looking to make sure that their voices are being heard, right? Like in a lot of different perspectives. Is it appropriate? Is there more information that's appropriate for us to have?
I don't believe that there's more information at this time because I believe that the themes capture the comments. Because I went back through looking at and say, and checking off this theme captures this. There's nothing that's left out there in isolation.
Okay.
I think what I would like to do for you is to write something up for you about how to take this and do something with it meaningful. I would rather use my time on that than going back to see what did we best when I know I've gone through it at least 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
That would be appreciated. That would help us. Anybody else up here? Dr. White, we appreciate your time and effort and all that you've done. And we are committed to making sure that we follow up, and your follow-up summary recommendations would be much appreciated.
I'll get that to you.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to discussion action items, 6.1, approval of the renewal of the MOU for college
I
and.
want to give everybody just a minute.
Are they gonna leave? We're gonna take a 1 or 2 minute recess while people leave. Okay, we will resume now. 6.1, approval of the renewal of the MOU for college and career pathways. What? Please exit quietly. We are trying to continue with our meeting.
Go ahead.
Partnership agreement between Glendora, USD, and Citrus College as presented. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ellenson.
Seconded.
Thank you, Ms. Borg. Any questions? We went over this
We have a
earlier.
big folder right here.
Yeah.
Is it you, Dr. Kelson? Is there anything additional that you may want to provide, information that you'd like to provide on this? No can be the answer.
May I only say that the folder in front of our trustees and cabinet, which will be available on the website for any community member who is interested in seeing it, contains information about the College and Career Readiness Indicator, which is part of the California dashboard, and the existing Career Technical Education pathway, or CTE pathways, that are in place at both Glendora and Whitcomb High Schools. Many of the documents before you, which will be posted and freely available to students, also include local careers that students can begin to learn more about. So thank you. That's an update from a previous request, I believe, made last spring.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Then 6.2, approval of the employment of co-interim assistant superintendents of human resources as presented. Was it presented?
Not yet.
Dr. DeGrazia?
Well,
Dr.
I
Ace-
I move.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Ruder and Dr. Fernando, seconded.
Very good. Thank you, President Merkley. I'm excited to bring this forward very much. This will provide us support in the field of human resources as I'm in my new interim superintendent role. This will be a job share, so to speak. Just as teachers would job share, we will have two, maybe a third here and there for some special projects, assistant superintendents of HR to assist us in the field of personnel. They are very highly qualified individuals. One is named Mr. Corey James. He's the former assistant superintendent of Azusa Unified prior to his retirement. And then Mr. Richard Tower. Those two will work primarily together. And then we have, and he's a former HR assistant superintendent and superintendent, as is Mr. Alan Rasmussen, who assisted us in the past for interest-based bargaining in our district to roll out those processes. So both outstanding, well-versed individuals that will be able to run with that ball, and they will start their work here tomorrow. It's one FTE. It's a job share. They are retirees. They're limited to earnings. And we also have no health benefits costs for these individuals as they're retirees. Yeah, they have STRS limitations, and they're retirees. So they'll be part-time, but they'll be assisting us starting tomorrow if this moves forward. Thank you so much.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. That brings us to 6.3, approve, ratify the agreement between Dr. Penelope De Leon and Glendora Unified School District, providing for payment, health benefits, and general release of all claims as presented. The Board of Education took action to conclude the superintendent's contract without cause pursuant to paragraph 15. It was a difficult decision to terminate the superintendent's contract, but we felt it was best for the district, and Dr. De Leon supported that action in light of her personal circumstances. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruder and Dr. Fernando. Mr. Covert, did you want to address this?
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. DeGrazia, and members of the community. The agreement is posted online. I negotiated the agreement consistent with the terms and conditions of her employment. It also contains a complete and mutual release for a payment to Dr. De Leon and a release of any claims, known or unknown, by both parties.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would recommend approval, and the agreement has been approved by me as to form.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. The Board of Education may consider consent items as a whole or as individual divisions. Any item may be removed by a member of the Board of Education and possible action. Did we want to discuss, are there any that want to be removed?
No.
Are we all good? Okay. Then may we have a blank, what?
Did you want to pull something up?
No.
Okay.
Okay, may I have a blanket motion to approve all the consent items?
I second it.
Dr. Fernando moved, Ms. Borg seconded. Any questions, any comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. I didn't take roll. We're all here. Okay. Anything else? Looks like nothing. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Reuter. Thank you, Mr. Ellison. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:09.